So it's really about being aware of what you're feeling, knowing when it's your issue versus their issue, and keeping that separation and making sure that you don't overshare for those things. And then you let yourself know, I'm glad that my teen feels comfortable taking the subway, taking the bus, going out with friends, driving, getting their license. It makes me feel uncomfortable, but that's part of growth.
Hi, Cara.
Hello, Vanessa.
We're giddy because this conversation was really, really fun. We have Dr. Ann-Louise Lockhart on the podcast. She's a pediatric psychologist and lives down in Texas, but is Caribbean born. And we cover a lot of ground in this conversation. We cover everything from like people's cultural and ethnic backgrounds and how that informs parenting, everything to like messy rooms.
Right, because it's all in service to the title of the book that she wrote called Love the Teen You Have. And it's a through line that's come out in so many of our podcast episodes, like you parent the kid you have, you this the kid you have, you that the kid you have. And her perspective, which is so Vanessa, I can't even believe it. I mean, like it is like it's a book you would have written, title you would have written, is really, it's all about just loving the kid you have. And so she takes her experience as a pediatric psychologist, a parent coach, a founder of a pediatric psychology practice called A New Day, and she basically has amassed it into this book that is kind of half how-to and half love letter, right? It's like, just here's how to love the kid you have. Here's how to love the teen you have. Here are all the stories from all the people that I've heard. So you're not alone, but it can be better. And you can have joy. You can match their energy. You can meet them where they are. They can meet you where you are. It's a very wide-ranging and very focused conversation all at once.
Have fun. Hi, Ann-Louise.
Hello, Vanessa.
We're all like a little bit giddy because we've been enjoying and following each other on social media for a long time. And now we're in the same room. I say that with the biggest pair of air quotes, the same virtual room. And it's really exciting to have you here because I don't just have to like hear what you've decided to tell us on social. I get to actually, and Cara gets to actually ask you questions. So welcome.
Thank you. It's really great to be here. I feel the same way, following you all, seeing your journey and looking at you online, and then now being in the same quote room. That's really awesome.
We're going to have a competition today for those of you watching on YouTube about who can make the most expressive faces while recording this interview. I don't know.
Already.
I feel like Ann-Louise could like give me a run for my money here. I mean,
hear the challenge.
She's more serene than I am, but we have equally expressive faces. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So for those people who don't know you and don't follow you and haven't yet bought your awesome book, which is sitting behind me here. Sorry for that pause, awkward pause. Love the Teen You Have, which is philosophically so much in our wheelhouse. Can you just tell us quickly a little bit about yourself and like how you got into this work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a pediatric psychologist by training, which means that my background was merging medicine with psychology. That's where my residency and fellowship was, working with the military, actually, and working in a lot of interdisciplinary clinics, which is where I just developed a love for this work. Rewind to my past. I'm originally from the Caribbean. I was born and raised in the Virgin Islands, and I was raised by a divorced mom of three. I was the youngest of three. And psychology was not my original goal. It was actually fashion and business because my mom had a children's clothing store. And then once I got to college, I'm like, don't think I want to do this. So then I changed my major about 6 times and then ended up with psychology just because I had to graduate in 4 years. So that was really the only reason why I ended up with the degree. And so, yeah, I've traveled all over the country. I was living in different places. I didn't know where I wanted to be. I knew I didn't want to be in the Virgin Islands because my home was destroyed by a hurricane 3 weeks into my senior year of high school. And so I ended up in Buffalo for college, then went to Indiana, then Ohio, then California, then Arizona, and then I ended up in Texas, which is where I've been the longest. So, yeah.
I'm just going back to we're all thirdborns.
Oh, really?
I was totally going to say that. Yes.
Are you all the youngest?
No.
No. No.
Thirdborns.
We love bringing it up on the podcast because
endlessly.
Endlessly, because we are believers in birth order theory. And I find it not at all surprising that a child psychologist who's a really effective communicator is a thirdborn. Just, saying, I think the traits that go along with being the peacemaker and the listener and the one who's trying to bring everyone together and all the things fits beautifully. Excited to hear a lot of commentary about that from the people who do not believe in birth order. So let's jump into a little bit of the heart of what you do and how you do it. And I would love to start with the concept of battles. I'm going to go broad and then we'll narrow this a little, setting the stage with how the world tells us what adolescence is supposed to look like, which is kids and their parents do not get along. So that's the narrative we're all fed. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that and then get to the concept of what a fake battle is.
Okay. So I believe toddlers and teens have a bad reputation for being difficult, but some of it is true, which is why it's there. And I believe a big part of it is because of brain development and what's happening with their brain neurons firing and the sense of individuation, being their own individual separate from their parent. Toddlers learn, I don't have to be carried around by this meat sack. And I can move around in the world. I can wipe my own bottom. I can cut my own meat. I could say no. And then in the teenage years, the same thing starts to happen as well. Well, hopefully they can wipe their bottom by then. But that they have these...
And wash their hands. I know that's a big wish,
gross.
But that would
they
be nice.
can, but will they? Totally different question.
But, they start to believe that they have values and beliefs and opinions and fashion sense that are different from their parents. They don't have to go along with the way they were raised. So a lot of parents go into shock because they had this child that they were raising that they probably felt close to, who always hung on every word they said. And then now they become this tween, which is happening earlier and earlier, 9, 10, 11. And now all of a sudden they're thinking and operating differently in the world than their parents. And that can be a shock for a lot of parents. So as a psychologist, I see a lot of teens that come into the practice by parents because they're confused. They think there's something wrong because their teen doesn't want to hang out with them anymore. And they rely on their friends' opinions more.
Let me just drill down on that for a second, because it's a really interesting point. Do you think that degree of individuation is any different now than it used to be? Do you think that parents today mourn the loss of what they think the relationship is supposed to be in a different way? Like, how has it shifted? Because in a lot of ways, it doesn't feel like it has shifted. And in a lot of ways, it does.
Yeah, that is a great question. I haven't had that question asked before. And I think, yes, it has shifted because I'm a Gen X. So I was born in the 70s. And our generation, there was a public service announcement that had to remind parents that they had kids. Do you know where your kids are? Right?
Right? It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Right.
As our parents smoked cigarettes, drank tab, and took uppers to lose weight.
Right. So we were very much, and then my husband, whenever he tells his mom, I was a latchkey kid, she gets so offended. He's like, I literally took the bus, ran away from the dogs, had to have my own key. And then you and dad came home hours later. We were parenting ourselves. And so a lot of our parents didn't hover and notice things or notice when we individuated, you know? So I don't think that it really was a concern until really this generation. I think Gen Zs are the ones that are really keeping us on our toes because they're much more aware. They're much more, I mean, they went through this pandemic, for crying out loud. And we have all of these podcasts and summits and books and retreats, all this knowledge about parenting that parents didn't have this information before.
Right.
So yes, I believe this whole individuation where the parents are mourning this loss of their little being that's now this independent thing. I think they're more aware of it because they're so aware of what parenting is supposed to look like. Not to mention being on a public platform everywhere you go, you see all of what it looks like for other people. And why am I missing the mark?
So I was thinking recently while I was reading your book so I have 4 kids and my oldest used my youngest as like his mascot. He was like his little mini me and he would kind of like, he was like his little assistant, right? He would tell him what to do and he would do it. And it was like cute and also like, oh, buddy, just wait. And eventually my youngest kind of was like, okay, I'm done with that now. I'm now my own person. And I remember my oldest feeling so sad and mystified that his little mini me wasn't interested in being a mini me anymore, wasn't interested in being controlled or told what to do or anything. And he came to me and he said, I don't really know how to have a relationship with him now that he's not like doing what I tell him to do. And I was thinking about that in the context of parents and teens, right? When they separate, as you write beautifully about in the book, and as they pull away and there's the grief, but there's also this like, well, if they're not next to me, then we're not on the same side or we're in opposition. And that all of a sudden it becomes a kind of like, I don't want to say contrarian relationship, although sometimes how do we allow for the individuation while still acknowledging that we're on the same side versus whatever challenge or, high stakes situation or a low stakes situation comes up. And then I want to get back to the concept of fake battles that Carr brought up.
Yeah. I think that's such an important part because we want our tweens and teens to find their way. We want them to find their passions, their own interests, things that they like that sets them on fire. And just like we would want to do it for ourselves. So I believe that why there's this contrarian, sometimes a conflictual relationship is because parents take offense to it. Like I remember when my son had first said, when he was a toddler, and he was like, he smelled us, he was smelling us. We were cooking bacon and he could smell it.
I did not know where that was going. So thank you.
I was like, new topic for the podcast. Here we
go. So he was smelling the bacon and he was like, bacon, yucky. And I was like, what? Oh my gosh, I feel offended.
Bacon's amazing.
Yes. And then over time, he started liking it, right? And this is the toddler phase. But now that he's a teenager, he's 13 and my daughter's 15, there are things that we like that sometimes he doesn't. And I sometimes feel a little offended. Like, oh, like we like this nice scrumptious steak. How do you say you prefer chicken? Like, what the heck, right? So, and that's just a very low stakes situation and opinion. But yet I think as parents, we think, well, we have these things that we like. And so because we're raising you this way, everybody should like it. And so that could be from the very small things to the very extreme things. So I believe for a lot of parents, and I hear this from parents, they start to feel a little peeved or offended or how dare they or betrayal when their teen goes off on their own. They have their own friends. They have their own interests. They don't like sports like you. They don't want to dress the way you do. They don't want to go to church with you. Like all these things where they start to individuate and it feels like got stabbed in the heart.
Which is sometimes authentic. They really don't like that thing. And sometimes they don't like that thing because you do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when we think about the kind of tensions or conflicts that come up, you write about fake battles, which is not to mean there isn't conflict, but you talk about how what's at stake is not really that important. Can you go down that path for us? Because I just found it so interesting and helpful as we think about what really matters when we're caring for tweens and teens.
Yeah, I like talking about this topic a lot because that was one of the original thoughts I had in terms of a title, like Stop Fighting Fake Battles, because I find that a lot of us as parents, me included, we focus on the wrong thing. And we see the thing they're doing and we harp on that. That's why when parents are like, well, I'm punishing this and I'm over talking that and nagging that and lecturing that. And many times it's the fake stuff, like the unclean room, the body odor, the not doing the homework, the sneaking the phone, all of the eating badly, whatever it is that we focus on, and we fight that battle. And instead, we need to get curious about what's driving the behavior. We have to speak to that intention, speak to that thing that's driving it, because then we miss it. And I believe that's why a lot of times, well, I know this for a fact, because this is what teenagers tell me, that's why they get upset with their parents, because they feel misunderstood, because they're focusing on the wrong thing. So they see that they're moping around the house and they're not getting to the real issue.
Okay, so let's go there. Let's start with the messy room.
Okay.
Because
we did a whole
real
episode about messy rooms.
Right? About
That's
this particular fake battle. So walk us through, because it's very real. You open their door and you cannot believe the cyclone that has hit it. So walk us through how one separates the reality of what they see in front of them from the deeper core issue, and how do you get to that deeper core issue?
Yes. One of my favorite things. So one of the things I talk about a lot is executive functioning, because that is a real thing. Executive functioning is prefrontal cortex and brain development, not developed until mid-20s, maybe 30. And these are things like organization, prioritization, working memory, processing speed, time management, attention, flexibility, judgment, decision-making, like all of these things that they suck at many times. And then if they have a neurodevelopmental disorder or mental health diagnosis or brain trauma or medication side effects, then on top of that, they can be struggling even more. So you have a messy room. That is what you see on the surface. Okay. However, do they have an executive functioning dysregulation disorder like ADHD? Do they have poor executive functioning? Maybe not a diagnosis, which means maybe they don't know how to organize their thoughts to then figure out how to organize a room, especially when it gets to the point where it's that messy. Because in order to clean a room, you need to even be able to be aware that it's a messy room so that you're not blind to it, right? And then you also have to be able to prioritize what to do first, and then to initiate that action, and then to persist in that action, and then to complete it without distraction or frustration. Those are all executive function skills that can be impacted. So those are the real reasons for a messy room. It's not just that they're lazy and they don't care. There's other things driving it, because why is it so hard for them? And I believe we have to pay more attention to that.
So I may have some people living in my house who have messy rooms. And what I used to do, which obviously was the wrong thing, we can all agree, was I would just start cleaning up. Like in my fury, it was like a cleaning anger, right? Yeah. And it was like I started cleaning up, and I would often do it first thing in the morning. Like I would wake my kids up, and then I would start to look around and I would start to clean up. So it was like doubly terrible. But to your point, Ann-Louise, what I realized was with one of my kids, she just didn't know where to start. It was like, it just felt like a morass of stuff. And she's, whatever neurotypical actually means, I don't even know. She doesn't have any diagnoses. Kids are like bright and sort of functioning human beings, but it was like they didn't know where to start. I want to give you a separate example. So that's sort of like, what skills do they have? Do they have the capability? The battle becomes like you're harping on what's on the surface, and they're like, dude, I can't do this. Like, I don't know how to do it. Sometimes they actually just don't care. Like, right. I think there is room for kids who don't care.
I mean, before you give the other example, though, I do want to know what the right way to approach it is, because you have given us such a shining example, Vanessa, of the wrong way to approach it.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So Ann-Louise, I'm just curious, before Vanessa moves on to scenario B, you open the door, you're Vanessa. It's 7 a.m. What's the right way?
Yeah. Great question. By the way, I love the word morass. I don't think I've ever used it, and I love it.
Just stick around. I'm going to pull some other vocabulary out that's going to really, really wow you.
So I have a child in my home who is exactly like that with my daughter. And I was exactly like that as well, where I would get overwhelmed by my room. So it was just a train wreck. And my mom is a very meticulously neat person. When we moved to a house, within a week, the whole house was as if we've always been there. Like she is totally.
Cara can relate.
I love your mom. I am related to her. We are deeply connected. I can't believe it takes her a whole week.
So what I would say first is we have to be in tune with how we're feeling. So Vanessa, when you come into the room, you see all this crap everywhere, your nervous system is getting dysregulated because you are feeling like, oh my God, how the heck do you live in this and not see this, right? So you then go into what I call rage cleaning because you are just so activated, right? So yes, that is probably not the ideal way to go about doing it. However, it can be effective, but what the problem is that then they're not learning any skills in the process, right? So what I would say and how I do it, I try to most of the times, is being able to body double with my child. So setting a timer, turning on music. Music is both love music. We'll put on some old 80s music videos or whatever. Listen to music, blast it. And then I would say, okay, you pick up the books on the floor. I'll get the crap that's on the floor, whatever. You get the clean clothes. I'll get the dirty clothes. You make up the bed. Get your stuffed animals, and really like a little coach or foreman directing each task. So that way she starts to get in her mind, this is how you organize your thoughts and your space to get it done. Now, does she do it every time? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like she's not able to maintain it because so quickly she comes home, takes off her shoes. It's as if like her body, her clothes just dissolve off her body and it ends up on the floor.
I mean, what is that?
Keep trying to say maintain, maintain, maintain. So what I would say is that you're just directing, your body doubling. And parents are like, well, how many attempts does that take for them to get it? So when they can figure it out, I'd love to know. But it's the repetition, right? It's that whole 10,000 hours of perfect practice over time. After 10 years, maybe they get it, right? But you're building skills and developing habits all the time. And if we can do it when we're regulated, then their brain system can kick in because they're more emotionally regulated. So they can critically think through things and figure it out in the process. So I would say you do it alongside them. The body doubling is the best thing for when there's a refusal or a reluctance to do the thing.
And I would suspect you would add the caveat that if it's working on our timeline, because at 7 a.m. we've been up for an hour and a half and fully caffeinated and it's not working on theirs, it's probably not the best time of day.
No,
I'm not actually shaming Vanessa. I'm shaming myself with this question because Vanessa knows my Achilles heel is something pops into my head and it is the absolute right time to do it no matter what. And it is not. It is not.
I would say in the morning is not the best time to do it. Do it when everybody's both chill.
It's a terrible time, but I'm like, how many empty bags are on the floor? How many,
as many as there are pairs of shoes is the answer.
Oh, I know. And then the shoes, I mean, we're most of the way through soccer season. So the cleats are in the bedroom and they stink. I'm not going to make everyone enjoy my misery with me. Okay. So here's another scenario, which is clothing choices. And it's one that we cover on other podcasts and from other angles, including angles around empowering young people and acknowledging their individuation. But people get into this. This is really common. And I would love from your framework how you would have a conversation with a kid who's wearing something that you are like, yeah, you're not going to grandma's house in that outfit. I'm wondering, rather than get into the sort of politics around clothing, I'd love to hear how you might frame that with a kid.
Yeah. So that's where, again, we are parenting based on our framework, our preferences, our values, what we think is right and wrong versus sometimes things are just neutral. And I also believe then we are willing to die on a hill because this is what we're going to do at the risk and the expense of a relationship with our teen. And we have to really pick apart and think, is it actually that important? Or if it is, watching how you address it. Because like Cara said earlier, teenagers will often kind of hunker down and push more because they know it pisses you off, it upsets you, it riles you up. And for some teens, they find connection through conflict. So what I would say more is to approach it more with curiosity. I find that whenever I do this with my clients and my own kids, it works almost 100% of the time. So they say something really off the wall. They want to wear something really off the wall. They ask about something that's like, what the heck? And instead of having a reaction, you just lead with curiosity. So they wear something and you're like, these booty shorts and their booty cheeks are hanging out or whatever it is. And you're like, you're not seeing grandma like that. She's going to have a heart situation, right? Then you could say, look at your outfit. Okay, booty shorts. I see you. You can comment on what you see and then see what kind of follow-up you can get from them. Maybe you both have a laugh.
What if the comment is, yeah, and there's no move, like, I'm playing chess and you're playing checkers and I am not changing my outfit. So then what?
Right. But the motivation can't be where you're trying to change their mind because then they're going to pick up on that vibe. Right. So you say, okay, booty shorts. Yeah. Okay. Go off, queen. Oh, yeah. You know it. This is what I'm going to wear. Okay. So, you're going to go see grandma's, how you think that's going to work? Oh, I think grandma's going to like my outfit. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So what do you think is...
You're like, can I record grandma's reaction?
Right. Right. And then you have to really ask yourself, if you really hunker down and push through on this, you're going to get more resistance, more pushback. And you want to really ask yourself, how important is it to have this big argument over this? And how, especially when they're a teenager, how much are you going to make them change their outfit? And how are you going to approach it? Because then you have to ask yourself, why are they choosing this at this time? Because they're probably trying to get a reaction out of you.
Right. And is it within our purview to share our opinion? I mean, where my brain goes is when the answer is, I think grandma will like this outfit, which is, literally a conversation we have had many times in my house and so many others, I'm sure. My answer has often been, well, I don't. And there have been times where that outfit is worn for grandma. And that is worth everything because when grandma does not like the outfit, you don't even have to fight the battle. It's like, it's all laid bare for you. But there's that. And then there's like, sometimes it's a safety issue or it's scary. Sometimes you're sending your kid out in the world, not to grandma's house in booty shorts, but like out into the world in booty shorts. And now the stakes feel higher.
Yeah.
And so how do you thread that needle?
That's where you use more observational language and your concerns and kind of like that I feel, like that very I feel. So, hey, I see that the shorts, I know that you really believe that they look super cute, but we're going to be going to the coffee shop or restaurant. And I would prefer, I feel uncomfortable with you wearing that where half your butt cheeks are hanging out. Would you consider changing it up? And when you come back home or when you're with your friends, you could just wear whatever the heck you want. It just feels uncomfortable and it's probably not the best thing to wear where we're going. And so really just sharing, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm feeling about it, and then putting it back on them. Because again, the thing is, when it comes down to it, they're going to make their choices. And we have to decide how we're going to handle it, because is it going to be an all-out brawl where then you start taking things away from them because they refuse? Or are you willing to say, you know what? Yeah, I think you look super cute. I'm glad that you are very confident in your body to wear something like that. But where we're going, it's probably not the best outfit to wear.
Yeah. My rule happens to be no butt cheeks hanging out of shorts.
That's a reasonable rule.
I never imagined that would be the rule. And it's, my kid, for whom that's relevant, is going to be going off to college and God knows how much butt cheek is going to be hanging out of her shorts. But for now, we've come to an agreement. So I want to take that concept that Cara mentioned earlier about fear. Your messaging is like, hey, we're not micromanaging our kids now. We're doing some skill building. We're doing some curiosity, some noticing. Maybe occasionally we're putting in our preferences and testing the waters. But now there's stuff where we're like, we're worried. We're scared. Are those like the real battles? Like, how do we know when there are times where I'm not getting curious? I'm not like sharing my preferences. I am setting down limits.
Yeah. Well, those are where there are certain things that are the non-negotiables, right? Like getting a good night's rest, putting your phone away, not having access to certain online sites, not being out past a certain time. Like there's certain things that are going to be non-negotiables. And yeah, absolutely. And then there's other things that are like, and it depends on your household, depends on your values. It depends on a lot of things. And I believe those need to be communicated well and explained, not just like, because I said so, but to be discussed with your teen and then being willing to hear their side of things. So when they say things like, my friends don't have any limits on their phones, they could be on it whenever they want. Well, that's nice for their family. Every families have different rules,
right,
and different guidelines. And I would like for you to get a good night's rest. Sleep is non-negotiable. So your phone gets shut off at 10 and it wakes up at 7:40 every morning. And that's just the way it is. If you need some wiggle room because of homework, because you need support from a friend, we can make those accommodations, but you are going to get your sleep, for example.
And what if it's like just normal development of them being out in the world, right? Like driving or riding the subway by themselves or, going to concerts alone. And that's like, it's time. They should be doing it, but we are still feeling the fear. How do we manage what is reasonable fear on our part, even when it's reasonable sort of growth and development on their parts?
Well, but I believe that's where we have to acknowledge that, of course, you feel afraid. You have this child, who's becoming a teen, who's becoming mature, who wants to have more independence, and they're going to be moving around in the world separately apart from you. And that is scary. So it's important that we acknowledge that.
Right. But how do we not dump that fear all over our kids?
Well, that's why we have to acknowledge it. We have to say it. Like my son is in DC for a class trip, first time away from us for a whole week. And it was scary for us to think that he was going to be away and everything. Yes, going to be chaperones, other students, but it doesn't feel great. So we have to acknowledge, yes, I'm happy that you're excited about this thing. I feel a little uneasy about it, but that's my thing. And I'm glad that you're excited about it. Or we may not even share that with them because we don't want to dump it on them. Maybe you share it with a friend or a spouse or your partner. So it's really about being aware of what you're feeling, knowing when it's your issue versus their issue, and keeping that separation and making sure that you don't overshare for those things. And then you let yourself know, I'm glad that my teen feels comfortable taking the subway, taking the bus, going out with friends, driving, getting their license. It makes me feel uncomfortable. But that's part of growth. Growth is uncomfortable at times.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me too that if you've got a kid who is suggestible, sometimes your own worries get translated into worries they didn't even know they were supposed to have.
Exactly.
So here they are looking to individuate and become independent and try new things. And if you overshare all of your worries, you may paint a layer of anxiety on top of their very healthy desire to push a little bit outside the bounds. And I think that gets very confusing for them. Or you may have a kid who's a pleaser and they both want to explore the world and they want to please you. I mean, there are all these ways to slice it that gets confusing. I want to pivot to a related concept that you write about around energy matching, because, and the way I see these things related is sometimes they're trying to match what you want, and sometimes you're trying to match sort of where they are energetically. Can you just talk a little bit about communication and connection when energy is matched and when it is not?
Yes. So a big part of why I like this concept, it's a big thing in psychology as well, too. And the whole idea with mirroring in, for example, therapy is where you're basically reflecting back what the individual in front of you is feeling, thinking, even showing you. So I had a client one time, a teenager, he came in and he was angry at his mom. He's like, fine, you're such a loser. And he was coming in and he was just so mad. And he was coming in, he was like kind of huffing and puffing. And I'm like, oh man, there's some intensity going on there. He's like, yeah, bro, she's so annoying. And I'm like, yeah, I could see it. You're the jaw is clenched, your face, your fists are clenched. All these things are going like you're just mirroring, you're noticing, and you're helping them to feel seen, understood, noticed. You're not jumping into fixing or rescuing, making them feel better. You're just like a mirror. You're reflecting back. And it's basically, for parents, it's basically saying to your teen, I see you, I get you, and you're not correcting it. You're not trying to make them feel better. You're not telling them that you shouldn't feel that way. The mirroring is you're basically just mirroring. You're basically just reflecting. The energy matching goes a step further, because with the energy matching, it's like matching the intensity, but turning it down a few notches so that you're not going on blasting out of the stratosphere like they are. And you're not mirroring their chaos, but you're helping to regulate. It's like I talk a lot about co-regulation. And the co-regulation piece is you're lending your calm to the situation. The analogy I often use is like you're a lender, like you're a bank, and you've got great credit, you've got all this money, and you're lending it to this lender who has bad credit, will never pay you back. And that's okay, because you know what? You're covered with insurance. And so you're basically lending your calm to the situation. And the energy matching is like, man, these teachers suck. They always give us these tests and then they don't tell us how to study. Oh my gosh, I know, that's so annoying, right? You're basically, you could do it through your words. You could do it through your, kidding me, through all the ad-libbing, any of that stuff. But you're basically telling them, I hear you, I see you, I get you. And you're just matching that. Because what I think a lot of parents get wrong, which is the problem with a lot of how they interpret like gentle parenting, for example, they're really interpreting as permissiveness. Because this teen is calling them all these bad words and they're saying all these things about them. I hate you. I wish you weren't my mom. I'll go live with my dad. And we're like, you have very strong feelings. You know, mommy loves you anyway. And I'm like, that feels not only not genuine, it's kind of ridiculous. Because if someone was insulting you and calling you names and saying that you're like the worst parent ever, you wouldn't be that calm. That's not a normal response.
Okay, but how do you energy match that without engaging in battle?
You don't engage in the battle because that's the fake battle. Because the reason why they're saying that is there's something else behind it. Maybe they feel abandoned by their deadbeat dad. Maybe they feel alone and isolated. Maybe they feel like they were ghosted by friends. Like there's other things going on. So we say, wow, you've got some strong feelings about me and you were just spewing it all out there. I'm having some strong feelings about you right now too, but I'm not going to match that right now. We're going to take a little break for a little bit and we're going to come back to that. So you're acknowledging what's going on. You're saying what's going on. You're not calling your kid a loser. You're not saying, well, go, I'll help you pack. Like you're not saying any of these kinds of things. Although we want to, that's the co-regulation piece. And so although we're matching the energy, we're not being spiteful. We're not being petty about it. We're just matching. I get that you don't really like me very much right now.
Right. It's like they're standing on the side of the pool and we're like on the ladder by the pool, like a rung or two down, kind of talking to them and like trying to get them into the pool slowly but surely and sort of showing them the way down. I really like that. I want to talk for a bit because this is part of what makes your work unique in the parenting space about this is not the part that makes it unique. What parenting resources get wrong and the sort of inability to recognize different cultural influences, different family backgrounds, and how the guidance, advice, resources we offer sort of ignore, dismiss where people's backgrounds come into making parenting choices. So can you talk, we're going to dive into it more specifically, but I'd love to hear sort of overall, Ann-Louise, what you notice in this issue.
Yeah, I believe I have a lot of parent clients that reach out to me because they don't feel seen or acknowledged in how they show up. I've had clients from Brazil and Ireland and the Caribbean and Africa and like all these different places, or even in the US, coming from different places, interracial family or person of color, any of those kinds of things. But so much of the information they get feels or hear is so generic. And it doesn't take into account the societal factors, generational factors, cultural factors, historical factors. And it doesn't mean that we're blaming anything on how we show up today, but those things do influence how we show up today. And I believe that's so important. And I don't often hear lots of people. There are people that speak about this, but it's not often spoken about as a general rule. And I see so many things online where I'll call them out and say, hey, I noticed that you have a summit and I don't see anybody who represents any other background, like except just one kind of perspective. Like, do you have a different view? Do you have someone who's a male, who's Black, who's Latino, who's Asian, like just having different perspectives. So yeah, I believe that's really important because a lot of parents come in with, like, say, for example, African-American families with this whole idea of whooping their kids. That's how they grew up. So that's how you discipline. That's how you punish. And being able to shift from that without feeling bad about that is so important because it's not the best way, but they don't understand why. They just feel like, oh, that's just because we're whitewashing parenting. No, it's actually harmful to beat your kid. It's abusive, right? But helping them understand that from a very different perspective, or the Latinos with the chancla culture and just like hitting them with a slipper, like, and people think, oh, that's the way we do it. And we have to acknowledge that there's a lot of historical factors around that, but also helping them to shift their mindset without feeling like they're losing their culture and losing their way of parenting, or saying that their parents and ancestors were bad people because they did it that way.
Shaming their origins.
Yes, exactly.
Right. I mean, that's what I was going to ask is, do you have an elegant way through that? Because that's really hard. Or even how to help them not victimize themselves in the process of parenting more effectively or raising kids more effectively. Like, what words do you use?
Well, that's where I acknowledge, I'm like, I understand that, for example, your grandma whooped you when you were a kid, and that's what you always knew. And so it makes sense that is what you're bringing into your own parenting. You yourself have said you didn't enjoy it at all. You didn't like it. It made you feel afraid, and it really impacted your relationship with her. So is that the thing you want to pass on to your kids? It's not saying that, for example, your grandma was bad. She did what she knew best. That's how she was raised. However, as we know more, we do differently, and it's okay. And we're not saying that any generation is bad. It's just what they knew. And so I think it's really about acknowledging that. And it's the same thing when I talk to my mom about it, when she acknowledges things like, we didn't talk about feelings. That was a big reason why there was a rift in our relationship when I was a teenager, why I rebelled when I was a teenager, because I didn't feel like she saw me. She was dealing with so much of her own stuff that she couldn't deal with mine. And it's also cultural. Growing up in the Caribbean, we don't talk about feelings. And so that was the whole thing. And so as we healed our relationship from the two of us, a lot of that was acknowledging that. She's like, yeah, that's how we've done it for generations. That's how our culture is. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but it's harmful. And it's what destroyed our relationship early on. And so it's really acknowledging those kinds of things so that people know that you're still honoring your ancestors and your history. And it's okay to shift because now we know better.
Yeah. I mean, this comes up a lot in our work with respect to puberty and sex, right? Because these are big issues where people are like, no one ever talked to me about it and I turned out fine, or parents feeling like I really want to do it differently, but I don't know how. And I think that's a lot of it is like, if you, as you said, if you don't have the modeling of another way, you're sort of flying blind. And I hope, I mean, obviously with your work, but I hope there are other people who can offer up pathways where the starting point is different and the sort of the underlying assumptions and history is different. Because if you give someone a starting point and it's like, 5 miles east of where the person actually is standing, it's not helpful. I know for myself, I so often lose sight of the fact that unlike me, not everyone grew up in a house where like puberty and sex was talked about constantly. Luckily, I have Cara to remind me, and also that I'm raising my kids in a house where we talk about this stuff all the time. But the sort of walking back from the assumptions of where someone is coming from and what their starting point is so valuable no matter where that is. And it's something that I need to get better at because I'm like, oh, everyone loves talking about vaginas. Like, why is this an issue? Sorry, I had to. So I think you talk in the book at certain points about kind of remembering who your kid is underneath it all, right? Like when you get elevated, when you get dysregulated, when you're in a battle, when things are not going well. Give us some guidance. Send us on our way with sort of love and hopefulness about what are some ways to kind of reset and remember who our kids are at the core, even when they feel a little bit unrecognizable to us.
Yeah, I love that question. And even hearing the question makes me smile because it puts me in a place where it reminds me to delight in your kid, delight in your teen. And one of the very practical ways that I do that, and I tell parents this in the book, is I have a digital picture frame and it's on our kitchen counter. And I have pictures of when they were little, when my daughter got her first two little teeth, when she was like milk drunk, when like they were driving in their little Camaro to the park, like all these little cute pictures, so stinking adorable. And as we're eating, they can see them. And they'll be like, hey, what was that again? And I was like, you remember. But we like just talk about it again, share stories. And we always updating it from our phone, putting things in. And to me, that really shows them, especially when you're going through a rough time with your teen. And you can remember those times when it was just tender and sweet, their first snowsuit or their first walk or their first tooth or their first whatever. And it can really help you tie into that kid that you love and you seeing all the wonderful warmth underneath the challenges. And I believe it's so important to remember that. Or, I love the way my daughter sneezes. She has the cutest sneeze. And so when I hear that, just giggling. Or my son, the way he laughs, like, sparkles in his eye, the way he loves to cook and he's a great cook. Like being able to acknowledge that and see those little moments about them and saying it. Because when we're going through rough times with our teen, it's so easy to focus on that and for them to hear so many negative messages around the challenges. Or you're out doing a wonderful outing and you're like, when you get back, don't forget to clean your messy room. It's like whatever. And it's like we mess up that moment. And I'm guilty of it too. And so,
me too.
it's just, it's so easy to go back into that making, it needs to be a teachable moment. Or now that we're close, I need to tell them how horrible they are, And so we want to make sure we're delighting in them and that they know that we like them, that we actually like them, that we enjoy their presence.
And letting the delight just be. Right.
Just
like not
be.
moving on to the stuff that has to get done or the, as you said, teachable moment. I mean, I'm so guilty of that. I'm so guilty of like my checklist is running through my head that I fast forward through the delicious moments to like get to my to-do list. And also when they're under pressure, sort of like finding moments of delight when they're not being awful. They're just like stressed out and they're not seeing the joy in life right now. It's very sweet.
Remembering as well too, like that even if they don't learn it, I never learned to clean my room when I left my mom's house and went to college. And for years, I struggled with being messy to the point where I was embarrassed to have people over. And then I learned. I'm a very, very neat person now. I learned because of my husband, because he was very neat. So I learned. And it was not until my 20s, but I eventually learned how to maintain my space. So yeah, did it hit me during the teenage years that all of her work and no, but all of it was still foundational. So I think we also have to remember you might be doing all these things and spinning your wheels and it may not kick in yet. And that's okay. You're still building a foundation. And is it all that important to break the relationship over whatever it is that you're complaining about,
Yeah. And I'll just chime in and say, one of the things I've caught myself trying not to say as my kids have gotten older is capturing those moments of joy and those pieces of them with the word proud. Because when we say, I'm proud of you, because it's like it's about us.
Yeah.
And I think, to put a fine point on this last piece that we're talking about, the point is it's about them. And so there are times when we're proud, for sure. And there are times when we're proud that it's not about us, but the framing, like, I'm so impressed by you, or you are making me laugh so hard right now. Or, there are lots of ways to say the thing without bringing yourself into the equation, and sort of on an individual level, and then sort of on a more meta level with kids that we speak with and through the world of healthcare, I think that type of communication where they are at the center of it and the adults are not, sometimes that's what helps center all of these battles and sort of quiet them and bring their energy in line with yours and do all the things that braid the threads that you write about and talk about so beautifully. Ann-Louise, it's a total joy to speak with you. We love your book, which I have right here. Love the teen you have. YouTube viewers, rejoice. You can see it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming and speaking with us and helping parents and trusted adults learn the skills to actually love the teen they have.
Thank you, Cara. Thank you, Vanessa, for having me here.
Thank you so much for listening. You can email us with questions, feedback, or episode requests at podcast@lessawkward.com.
If you want to learn more about what we do to make this whole stage of life less awkward for everyone involved, our parent membership, our school health ed curriculum, our keynote talks, and more are all at lessawkward.com.
And if you want products that make puberty so much more comfortable, visit myumla.com.